Roll call.
Cindy,
Here.
Seth,
Here.
Todd Kirking,
Here.
Andrew,
Here.
and Crystal.
Here. First period for public comment. Nobody's here. Anyone online would like to make a public comment?
There are a few people online, or at least one. Please let us know if you want to make a comment.
I'm taking that as a no.
Nope.
Approval of committee minutes from May 20th, 2025.
This is Crystal. I'd move approval of the minutes from May 20th, 2025 with no additions or corrections.
Todd will second it.
Okay, motion by Crystal, second by Todd to approve the minutes. Any further discussion, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Discussion with possible action on landfill gas remediation work plan, which is kind of amazing thing.
We're working on it. Okay, well, I'll put it up for you. Here's our draft version, but we've got Mike Amstead. We are hearing him this time and he's hearing us, so that's good. I don't know, Mike, do you want to walk through it in general?
Sure, I can do that for you, Sarah. Based on the regulatory requirements, by this coming Friday, June 6th, the city of Viroqua needs to submit to the DNR a work plan for how they are going to mitigate the migration of landfill gas beyond the property line. And this work plan is basically, it describes the background, how we got to where we are today, and what we are proposing to do for the DNR to review. If everything's acceptable to the DNR, implementation needs to be done by the 30th of June. So right now I have to work out with the DNR what they are calling implementation, but what this is calling for is the landfill currently has a passive gas system which consists of pipes buried below the final cover. So there's a final cover made of clay that impedes the flow of water into the landfill and impedes the flow of gases vertically out of the landfill. So underneath that final cover, there is a passive gas venting system that consists of pipes and trenches, and they connect to 5 existing goosenecks out there to vent to the atmosphere. That system may be working a little bit, somewhat, but it's not controlling the gas from getting off site. So what we are proposing to do is to put in additional piping underneath the cover with additional goosenecks. And the way I've got this written up is we will do approximately a 300-foot trench on the east side near the church building. And that 300-foot trench we'll put in a aggregate trench and a pipe that'll be connected to 4 goosenecks. And we will monitor gas probes 1, 3, and 2 to see if the gas that we were seeing in those gas probes starts to go down or is eliminated completely. The goal is for those to be showing 20% oxygen and no methane. So basically ambient air. If that 300-foot section works, we will expand it to approximately the whole 1,000 feet, because we also have migration along the north at gas probes GP 4 through 7. And that is, and so what we're gonna do is put the 300, what we're proposing to the DNR is put 300 feet of trench in and monitor the gas probes 1, 2, and 3 weekly for up to a month. And then depending on those readings, construct the additional 700 feet. I am not 100% sure that they're gonna agree with this approach. They may want the whole 1,000 feet, but I don't wanna construct 1,000 feet of something if it is not gonna work. So this is, in my opinion, the best course of action for the city to take at this point in time. We've looked at other possibilities of things to do, of things like whirlybirds that you can get from Menards or Home Depot that you put on the existing gas vents out there. Something that you might see on top of a roof line that just would pull a little more vacuum out of the 5 existing vents, but that's not going to be enough. We looked at installing blowers, small blowers on the existing gas vents. That is not going to pull enough vacuum. You could put a active blower, so a vacuum cleaner. It needs to be intrinsically safe, so it's not just your typical vacuum cleaner or shop vac or anything like that that we could retrofit to work. But that is going to be, it's going to require at least a generator for the short term and electricity long term, and there's no guarantee that that will work, and it's a very expensive option. So out of the low cost options that I don't think have a chance of working, and higher end options that are going to be expensive, and you still may have to put in this trench, I think the best course of action is to try doing this 300 feet and see if it gets the results that we're looking for. And I tried to make that as simplistic as possible, but if I flew too high or I got too deep into the weeds, if anybody's got any questions, I'm more than willing to try and answer.
Anybody have any questions? I thought that was, the picture helps a lot. Seth, it's hard for you to visualize it, I imagine.
Well, I was visualizing, but I appreciate the explanation of it, Mike. I like the idea of basically a test trench first.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, even just from a construction perspective, you know, to know that what we're expecting to see, how we're expecting to do it is actually what's happening out there, because there's still a lot of variables. So,
And we did, talking with Badger, who's working locally, so if they do the 300 feet and they have to come back in a couple of weeks, how much is the mold, demold gonna cost? And they threw out a number of about $500 per piece of equipment. So if it's a backhoe, a dozer, a dump truck, maybe $1,500 on a project that's gonna cost hundreds of thousands of dollars if we do the whole 1,000 feet. And if we do the whole 1,000 feet and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and it doesn't work, that's not the time to find out. I'd rather find out by doing about 300 feet first.
How deep's it gotta be? Are you gonna go?
We asked for 2 different quotes, one for going about 10 feet deep. So the final cover is 5 feet, and I'm using round numbers. Final cover is 5 feet deep, so going 5 feet into the waist. And then the second option that I asked for is going 10 feet into the waist. So we did get costs, and on here it says 5.5 to 10.5. We got costs, and they're revising their numbers, because their initial numbers were based off of hypothetical, this is what we're gonna do, and so on. They had to put their numbers together very quickly, and now they're sharpening their pencil. Now that they have pictures in front of them and can see what we're proposing to do.
Who's they that's sharpening their pencils?
Badger,
Badger, okay.
I'm not sure if it's Badger Construction, Badger Excavating. Sarah,
Actually- Badger Environmental.
okay, Badger Environmental.
Mhm. Yeah, this is sort of the result of the process, right? Like we moved into it really quickly. We wanted to get a handle on what we were talking about. And it's hard when a contractor gets something that's somewhat vague and they don't know all of the parts, which again was because TRC was moving so quickly and like trying to get numbers before they had the image to send them and, you know, that kind of thing, the drawings. And so I think, and then also we had a conversation about like the things that were more challenging for Badger and how like they would go about the excavation and move the trench boxes. And I think it was a really good meeting to help everybody kind of get on the same page and then figure out like how to do it most effectively.
So to answer the original question, how deep are we going? Until we start digging, I am not sure how deep. As we're gonna try and go as shallow as possible. If we can get the waste to breathe through this gravel trench and not have to dig deep into it, that would be ideal. But we'll have to be out there observing what they're finding. If once you get through the cover, most of the stuff is inorganic material, we'll have to dig deeper because there is something in there that is creating gas. There's somewhere in there, there's biological activity that's occurring, and we need to make sure this trench crosses that biological activity so that it can breathe and come out the goosenecks.
Okay. So,
Let's see. I was trying to think of some of the other highlights. You had talked about, we had talked about trying to intercept the current passive gas system, at least getting close to the top so that we're capturing the gas as it is at the high point and possibly, and I'm hoping I'm getting this right, but getting, you know, some understanding of what's in there now and maybe understanding better like why it's not working.
Yes, and Sarah, so if you go to where the red line is showing the trench, you can scoot it over. So at the kind of right next, yes, there's a kind of a bullseye, and right in the middle of that bullseye, there is a passive vent that should be allowing this gas to get out, and for some reason it's just not doing its job. So I did not show it on here. I did not mention it in the work plan that we were gonna try and maybe tie into that or investigate over there, because I didn't want the city to be committed to any more than it has to be. But going to that passive vent that is there, which will be another maybe 30 feet to dig down in that area, try and find out why the existing system possibly is not working, which could be as simple as it was bedded in a very dirty sand, which was common back in the day, because when the rules came out, they just said you had to put it in sand. So a lot of people used a silty sand that's dirty and doesn't really allow much movement of air through it. It's not porous, whereas our trench is going to should be very porous.
One other highlight I would say would be, you had talked about, sorry, I'm driving and talking, not literally driving a car, but driving the screen. And sometimes it takes me a second to make sure I'm doing what I want to do. So this discussion about the monitoring as well, I did talk to Mike about like, is there, like, could we rent the monitoring equipment and then have them teach me or whomever to go out and do the monitoring? Because currently they have like $2,000 per monitoring event because they're driving out and doing all that. And so it sounded like that was a really good possibility. And we were going to get some information about like renting some equipment. But, I certainly can do sampling or really even some of the utility staff know like had the protocols of sampling. So, yeah, working on something like that. So I don't know. I think that's about it in terms of things I wanted to bring up. Is there any questions?
Did I understand you to say that they're going to do 300 feet first and see if that works, and then if it works,
Correct.
do the 1,000 feet?
That's the proposal.
Mhm.
Again, the DNR could not be interested in us doing it phased. So
So you're going to try that? Okay.
we
Try
are
to
proposing it. We have brought it up to them, but the area we're looking at doing is this area, right? This is the area because this is the church here. So this is like, the north side we did because we know there's going to be development, but there's nobody living here. There's no like buildings right there. It's quite far away to other buildings, but this area, this is a more active area. And so this would be our primary location to remedy first. And it's it's accessible and it just seems like a real good place to start. So that's the idea, is that if they'll allow us to just do a section of it, see that it's successful or whatever we find out. Again, we're, learning things constantly. And then opening it up and digging in will tell us more. It will tell us more about what's happening specifically there, but hopefully we can get just a better understanding of the landfill.
AJ?
If we go with this plan and the deadline being Friday for the DNR, and they say we can't do 300 feet, do we just default to doing the 1,000, or how do we?
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to react to whatever they throw at us. And then this is the work plan. And then the idea was that we would take the proposal, like the proposed contract, and take that to council and get it approved at council. So there's going to be like another step regardless after we go through this. But I guess it kind of depends on what they would tell us, which I'm assuming is do all of it, but we don't know that.
The one thing, so the DNR may say, do it all. Or the 300 feet we start digging, we may find something that we weren't expecting that changes everything that I'm proposing right now, which will end up being a phone call to Colin Maas at the DNR and say, Colin, things aren't like we thought and what we were proposing, that's not going to work. I'm going to send you an addendum, and then could be a back and forth. So I'm trying to keep it as generic as possible and allow us to put a backhoe or an excavator into the ground and see what we have. And then based on that, the first hole that we dig, whether it's 20 feet, start, working with Sarah and the DNR and saying, yes, I think we should, this makes sense. This is going to work. Because the 300 feet, that is just a rough number. I mean, we could go 20 feet and say, yeah, I think this is definitely going to work. And for this reason, we don't have to do 2 mobilizations. We open it up and all of a sudden there's no more gas showing up in the gas probes, and we will be monitoring. So this first 300 feet may take 4 days, 5 days. We'll be monitoring as we're doing this. So if we start seeing at GP3, the gas concentrations are going down and, things are looking good, I'll be providing that information to Sarah real time. So we'll know whether or not we want to stop and wait a month, which is going to be where the DNR has issues because of the church building. But if we show them that we're, trying to improve the area by the church building, that I'm hoping they're going to use common sense, but they have the rule of law that they have to follow. So they may just default to that.
So you need us to approve the plan so that it can be to the DNR by Friday. We were given authority to do that last Tuesday night by the council, so.
Exactly.
And if people need time to review it or read it and want to get back to Sarah, just as long as I have the A-OK to either make some modifications before we hit send on Friday or send it out on Friday, the city will be in compliance.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion.
AJ, I make a motion to approve the landfill gas remediation work plan
As presented,
as presented, yes.
This is Crystal. I'll second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Do we need any more explanation than that, do you think, Lori? Okay. This is money or this is not money at this time. So, okay. Roll call. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. There's nobody else left, so motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, Sarah, I'm gonna drop off, but if you need me, I got my phone right next to me and I can get back on.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
Or do you just want me to have you guys on in the background? I can do that
Oh,
too.
no, we should be done.
Okay,
Need you for. Thank you.
everybody have a great day.
You too, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of forecast electric proposal for lighting at the wastewater treatment facility.
Okay, this is the second proposal that we've seen from Forecast. We're keeping him busy in the lighting section.
Can we say why we need to do
Yeah.
this? What's that?
Explosion-proof light fixtures. Oh, yes. This is for the wastewater treatment plants. Yeah. It's in our treatment domes. They're covered. They let in a little bit of light, but obviously we need light all day and night when we need it. And the ones that we have in there right now, there's a number of them, well, 4 in total that are not working anymore, and they are not just something you put a new light bulb in because they are explosion-proof fixtures. And so this is for installation supply of 4 of the fixtures. And they look like this right here. And so they'll basically install them in the domes and again, make sure we have proper lighting that's to code.
They have cameras on them? Or does that just look?
I think that's just the way that it's attached to like a pole kind of
Oh.
thing, if you had it that way. Oops. So
I s-
looking for approval to install those lights.
We're doing explosion ones because we have to, I assume.
Yeah.
Or we just like to spend money. Only
Uh,
kidding, who's ever
Yeah,
hearing
it's
it.
a corrosive and potentially, there's different, at the wastewater plant, there's different classifications of explosion proofing and depending on the room, like for example, the primary buildings are probably the most concerning. But these are, any really closed building can build up gas when it's exposed, because I don't know if everybody came to the tour way back when we went, we should do one another time soon. But it's, that covered dome where you have all the open, the process basins. So.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve.
This is AJ, make a motion to approve the forecast electric proposal for lighting at the wastewater treatment facility for $3,772.
Okay, motion by AJ. Do we have a second?
Todd will second it.
Second by Todd. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Seth,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Crystal
Aye.
and Cindy.
Aye. Motion carries. Discussion and approval of financial assistance agreement for lead service line grant. Cheryl,
Okay, so
Didn't know how
this,
much you wanted up, sorry, Cheryl, but I have both of those documents in case you need them.
okay, I don't think so. It's fairly simple financial agreement. This is the financial assistance agreement for the funds that the DOA had set aside for municipalities that couldn't quite get the big grant that they were going for, which is what we were trying to do. If you remember back in fall of 23, we tried to obtain a $250,000 grant to replace the galvanized water service lines on the private side. We were not able to obtain that grant. However, as we had discussed before, the Department of Administration does have a pot of funding that they had set aside from the 21 and 22 grant fundings that they really want to give away, so to speak. So what this financial system agreement is, it's for the 7 eligible customers that we identified in previous meetings that had discussed that had done the work between 2023 and February of 2025. They had replaced their water service lines because they had broke. And in the original grant we had applied for, we could go back and reimburse those customers. So the Department of Administration is letting us do that. The total that we have budgeted is $23,643. This will not be a loan, so to speak, because they are giving us 100% principal forgiveness. So it'll be like an in-out type of transaction. We have to close on a loan. But since it's 100% principal forgiveness, and there's no money that we have to give, so it's on it's on the books as an in and out, so to speak. But that being said, we still have to go through the whole process of actually closing on a safe drinking water loan. So that's what the agreement is, and then there's a resolution that does need to be passed to go forward to the council next Tuesday. It's 0% interest. I submit the invoices and that is spelled out in this agreement as well. And then they'll pay us the money and it's sort of we don't have to do anything more. It's all done behind the scenes, so to speak. So we were very fortunate in obtaining this money. We only were able to help 7 people, but it was the 7 people that were eligible to receive this funding. So what I'm asking is, if there isn't any more questions, it's really a recap of everything we had been talking about for the past couple meetings. I just need to have this approved to move on to council because we do need to get it to the Department of Administration by June 13th.
Lori, you're okay with us just taking the resolution to the council?
Yeah, I'd already talked to Cheryl about
Mhm.
that or whatever, that you guys can just approve the resolution to forward it to council.
Do you want it? Okay. The resolution.
So I don't know if you have the resolution available for them to see. But they're,
Yep, she does.
Yeah.
And then the financial assistance agreement as well. Very simple resolution. The 23,000 is on the 3rd paragraph.
This is AJ. I make a motion to approve the financial assistance agreement for lead service line grant. Total of $23,643.
and the resolution, send in to council.
Yes.
This is
Council.
Crystal, I'll second.
Okay. Roll call.
Todd,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Cindy.
Aye.
And Seth.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you again, Cheryl and Sarah, for all that work. I mean, I don't think luck had so much to do with it as all the work you guys did.
just
For months and
your
months.
determination.
It was. Plus, we've got the groundwork laid.
Months and
Right?
months and months.
Right.
So if if they ever lift some of the requirements, we're all ready to go.
Yeah,
So-
well, thank you for being so on top of all this stuff. Review and approval of the 2024 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report, CMAR, and the resolution.
All right, it's everybody's favorite time of year. So I know, but you are on the
You
hook
mistimed it.
for this. So it is important that even once a year that you see what you have to be responsible for. Okay, so I will go in more detail today that's as necessary, but then obviously I'll try to abbreviate it for council, but it's still all council members are responsible to understand what's in this document. Pardon? Well, that's what the resolution says, that you review and accept it, and literally was told by the DNR that this is for the board. This is so the board knows what's going on and they make sure that all of these things are understood. Because,
Is there a test?
yeah. Let's hope they don't ever get to that point, yeah.
We're in trouble. Yeah.
Right, okay, so.
Can I ask, do you just get to plug in some numbers and the report fills itself out? You don't have to,
So this is
plug in-
mostly populated through
Yeah.
our submissions throughout the year.
okay, yeah.
Then there's stuff that we do fill out, but like all of this flow information, Brock doesn't have to put this in new. It like pops
I
itself.
wonder if in the old days, if they had to do.
Oh,
that.
I'm sure they did. Yeah. I don't know when CMAR started,
Right,
but
yeah.
we've done them ever since I've been here. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, so they were doing by hand. Yeah.
Okay. So our basic terminology. Get going. Okay. So our basic terminology, right? The stuff that comes into the wastewater plant is inflow. And so we always need to think about, can we handle what's coming in, right? So that's what we talk about in this first section. And it talks about like how much flow that we see. And then that converts itself. So here's our flow in million gallons per day. The reason we have a gap here is because our flow meter went down. And so our influent flow meter went down. We know what went out, but we didn't have our meter operating that was coming in.
You get a ding for that?
Fortunately, no. But still, it messes with our data sets. So our flow rates that we're looking for, and then it like says, okay, this is our design factor. We're at 0.535, and this is at, differing averages, right? We'll have our averages down here, but 90% flow and our 100% flow rate. So we're doing really well. We're not hitting like too much flows coming into the system. And then the same thing for our BOD. Our BOD is our like general parameter. It's our biochemical oxygen demand. It says like, can you handle how strong the waste is compare, and everything that comes in. So again, we are doing well in both of those. We're not exceeding the amounts that we're supposed to. We always do pretty well in like on our BOD loadings. Here, I think the maximum was like 767. Okay, flow meters. We talk about our influent flow meters and when they were calibrated. We have a sewer use ordinance that prohibits excessive pollutants in our system. Yep, we got all that taken care of. Septage receiving, basically this is our hauled waste. So how much we get for septic tanks, how much we get for holding tanks, just slightly different forms. And we have, we set up that station essentially to bring the waste in and be able to hold it and have a little more control. So that's been really great to be able to use. We don't have any facilities doing pre-treatment. And we had 2 loads of leachate, and that was just because they were in a bad spot, which we always try to help them when we can, but we don't like it all the time. And then our effluent, so that's what's coming out of the plant. This is what we would be having our limits on, right? So it's like they don't really care what comes in, they care what comes out. And so we always have two sets of information, which is always confusing because we have two outfalls. We have the outfall that's at the wastewater plant. That was the original outfall, but then we also put the outfall in down by Springville. And so this is why we have two, but we don't have any data for one because that meant that we weren't exceeding capacity or having some sort of upset that we needed to use the second backup outflow. And so we ended up with our different averages for all our parameters. This one here is our BOD results. So again, that's kind of like your like general organic matter biodegradation, meaning hitting limits. And that obviously would affect the water quality in the stream. Talk about our calibration again. What kinds of did we have any exceedances for things like chlorides, pH, that kind of thing? We did have a problem with one of our wet tests, which is our toxicity test, but it was because that it didn't show up to the lab on time. So they can only use it within a certain time frame. The subsequent tests passed. And again, we talk about that. We went through, make sure that like we didn't have anything odd happening at the time. So that one went okay as well. Then there's the solids. So like the amount of solid material that comes out in the effluent, we have limits there as well. And so we're doing well and didn't have any exceedances in that category. And so they give us a grade. So 100 points is good. You want, or excuse me, 0 points is good. It's backwards. So 0 out of 100. So that gives us an A. Ammonia is one of the parameters that we've just, well, in the last number of years started testing. So we have the monthly average is kind of confusing because there's a monthly average, there's a weekly average, but we have to pass all of those averages. And so again, we had no exceedances. This one is the one that gives me nightmares. We're doing well, but it's the one that I can't control very easily, meaning it's not something we can just like add alum to or whatnot. It's like you really have to have the microbes doing the things you want them to, and it doesn't turn around very quickly. Let's see. So again, all doing really well. You can thank your wastewater treatment plant operator for that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are the parameters that Brock always gives you at utility meetings?
Yeah, he always tells me this one, phosphorus and ammonia.
Yeah,
Those are the
I
two
thought-
big ones he's always checking in. It's a rare occasion we have anything with BOD or solids, like the limits are pretty high. It happens occasionally, like if we have so like we use clarifiers and sometimes like a chunk comes out. And so if we get that in our sampler, because our sampler is taking samples like 20 times a day, I think it is. That may not be right. 24 times a day. If, well, it's pulling those samples. If it picks something up, then it can change our reading. Phosphorus is like probably one of the major reasons most wastewater treatment plants have done upgrades in the recent past, because limits went from like 1 or above to like, this one says 0.8, and that only reason we have 0.8 is because we have our water quality trading involved with that. But our limit, we're trying to hit much lower than that 0.4. So again, we're doing really well there. Biosolids. So we got what goes out as liquid, but then we take stuff out, right? That's our biosolids. And we land apply our biosolids. We have 46 acres that are licensed for land application, and which is more than enough. And we always make a real point of not applying the full like limit that they give us. So they'll take soil samples and they'll take our samples, and then they'll tell us how much we can apply. And so we always do like about half of what is required. One, we don't want to overdo it on the soil so we can continue to use the same farm fields. And we are required in sludge to test for heavy metals and things like that, which we're not having any exceedances in. Let's see. This is kind of just saying you haven't had any problems with metals in the past or accumulation of it. And pathogen is so the idea that, you know, we're breaking down the potential pathogens because we're land applying it. And I see this right now. It says aerobic digestion. I have never caught that in all of the years that I have seen it. That is so interesting. In any case, it is anaerobic digestion that we do, which is correct here. So I'm not sure why it's got this repeated like that, but yeah, maybe. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to look at that more clearly. It may be our storage tank versus our digester, but it's not really aerobic even because it's only like the surface and there's, you know, 40 feet deep. But in any case, a technicality. And then it's so the other part about land application besides pathogen control is vector attraction, meaning we don't want like the animals to go crazy over the fact that we had just applied it. And so we do incorporate it or inject it into the land when we apply it. And we have 180 days storage. This is what the aim is, or greater. We aren't, for example, doing sludge application. We usually would do it in the spring and the fall, and we're not doing it this spring or didn't do it this spring because we didn't need to and wanted to try to save because it's not cheap. Not cheap at all, which is a whole nother conversation for another time about a different approach, but we won't get into it today. Our staffing, so was our plant adequately staffed? Yes. And do they have enough time to do all their management of it and maintenance? Yes.
Would they say that?
Yeah, actually Brock answered this section, so
Okay.
so
I don't hear him
clearly felt that
complaining.
way. Yeah. Sometimes I might question him, but you know, he feels like he's got it under control, which he does. So we have like all our major equipment is in a HawkWIM system, which basically tells him like what needs to be maintained when and like what kinds of things need to happen, like oil needs to be changed or filter needs to be changed. And there are some records that we also have in paper. That's essentially what it is. And, again, these are pretty straightforward. Like, yeah, I was interested that he picked very good as opposed to excellent. So self-reflection, I think, but yeah, I think that's probably an appropriate answer. So there you go. And again, that we had no points generated in that section. Yay, Brock's name was finally on it instead of somebody else and then him helping them. So that's I would say an achievement for him, an achievement for the city because we hired him and he was not an operator. So he's come through the city and learned over the last, gosh, he's probably been here 8 years now, and obtained his license. So I would say that's a good success story for everyone. And these are all the fancy things we need because of how like the complications or how complicated the plant is for operators. And then we have like our backup is we have the operator who is the operator in charge previously. We also have one learning, an operator in training, but we're not allowed to count him unless he's, I think it's like 6 months from being what it was, let's say within 1 year, and he's got like 5 years left to go. Yep, and he's got all the credits he needs, Brock does. And this section I can let Cheryl talk about.
So the DNR likes to make sure that we are reviewing our rates enough to make sure the revenue is covering all of our expenses. We do that every year. I actually do that several times throughout the year. We also need to make sure that we're reviewing our replacement account, which is the funds that we have in there to replace our major assets at the treatment plant. The last time we reviewed that was 2022, so Sarah and I do need to review that this year and update all the costs, which will update the amount of money that we need to have in our replacement account. Currently, we need to have $2.2 million. After this year, we increased it $138,000, 176 of that 90,400 is a required payment according to our loan documents that we must put in every year until we exceed the 2.2 million or a revised amount that we may find this year. And we did 47,776 of that 138 in interest. So I have put this into an aggressive investment account, the local government investment pool. And last year, the average interest was 5.22%. This year, it has fallen into the fours, but we're still doing well on our interest. So that'll just help us generate more money faster so we don't have to pay the $90,000 every year. Our ending balance as of December 31st was 1,032,000. According to our plan, we should have 891,915. So that interest is helping us surely, slowly but surely.
What was that? You said 90,000?
90,400 is our required payment as of now that we have to pay every year annually in December. We have to set it aside into like this investment account, or it's the local government investment pool is where we house it. It could be anywhere, but we house it in that because it draws the most interest right now. But we are required to house that and keep that as a separate account from our checking account, any other savings account. It has to be an account solely for replacement. So like if our digester took, knock on wood, a big dive and it cost us $200,000 to fix, we'll take it out of this account. This year, we did not have to take any money out. Last year, we took $46,000 out to fix, I think it was something in our digester. Is it the clarifier or the digester? I can't remember now either, but so this year we did good. Yeah. So we're doing well. That's about all I have for right now.
Okay, so then it says part of the financials is like, what are you planning on spending in the future? And so I just take a stab at what I have on my list. I would say most of this, I got to take off a whole bunch. That was kind of cool because we had our Chicago Avenue project and our Railroad Avenue project, and Broadway was all like separate pieces in here. And then Center Avenue's on here. So that's awesome because again, it's falling off the list. And then we have like our annual sewer lining, which that's a part of our operation. I guess the one that I will point out is our J Street lift station. I would think Greg, yeah, Greg would be like, we should do this tomorrow. And we've been holding off because we wanted to get as far along in our I&I study and remember the extra water coming in before we made a plan about how we're doing this. But I think this is probably like, once the dust settles from everything we're doing right now, probably something we should start thinking about again, about just replacing that J Street lift station. It's a problem child, as you said, but it's also our workhorse. It takes more water than any of them. And so, and starts and stops more than any of them. So that's a bigger wear on the system. In 2024, we had 7 lift stations, but we now have 6. Woohoo! That makes me happy because, yeah,
in 2024.
2024, it's 7, but 2025 is going to be 6. We're at least partially through, which is going to impact this energy consumption, right? The plant and the lift stations. And this just talks about like, what have we done to ensure that everything's operating as efficiently as possible? And we did a lot of work in like 2018 and 19 with focus on energy, and really not a lot's changed. So we haven't gone through the whole process again. They basically identified all the things that a lot of it we did with the upgrades. That was a big thing in those upgrades was energy efficiency.
So the lift station you got rid of was the one by the fairground?
Yeah.
So you just reroute stuff? I mean,
Reroute, realign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the big benefits of that project. And it just talks about like power consumed. We use a lot of electricity. We use a decent amount of gas depending on the time of year. We use our gas that we produce into the heating of the digester, but we can't just use that alone. And these are just kind of like, what kinds of things do you do? And
It has both kinds of, it has aerobic
it
there.
lists it, but I don't have it checked. It just says anaerobic. And so these are the kinds of things like that a person, an entity could do to improve the energy efficiency in the system. And so we have a lot of them. Sometimes some things we just don't need. And we talked about the biogas and the energy efficiency. We did both the wastewater plant and the lift stations. So again, doing well.
So you don't have any plans for energy? I saw like solar panels or something.
We've had that there in the
Or there was a
past.
question about that.
Yeah, in the past we've had, there's not a specific question about that,
Was something you have?
but I
any-
have in the past put it in there that we want to be looking into it.
Somewhere it had, are you planning anything to reduce energy? Something was in there. There, energy efficient.
What
equipment
energy
practice
efficient?
do you have planned for the future?
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
right. I mean, there's not a lot there that hasn't been done. That's what I mean. Like we did a lot of it when you go there, Focus on Energy has like a guide and you walk through the guide and every sort of like process. If you have this process, you should have like a variable frequency drive, that kind of thing. And we really have pretty much everything tied in. The one thing I have put there in the past is looking at like alternative energy, like solar energy. But I will say that when we went through when what's the Ethos had come through and worked with us, and E3 Coalition, they looked at like all the places in town, and I just thought they were going to jump all over the wastewater plant, and they were just kind of like, yeah, they didn't really see it as a great thing at the time because we didn't have a lot of extra space. That said, not that we couldn't look in the future, but I didn't put it in this time because like it kind of just it wasn't as exciting for those folks as I thought it would be.
Just curious. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's a good thing to look at because obviously we spend a lot of money on energy. And then we have to do our CMOM program. So we're constantly updating our CMOM, which is our our capacity maintenance operation, capacity management, operation and maintenance. And basically it's just like how we run everything and who does what and how to, the hierarchy and that kind of thing. So, and then it like asks for things. The one thing I always bring up because I feel like it's something that we're going to get asked about in the future, and I'm trying to look for where it is. There's something in here about like private property inflow and infiltration. So it does require that people can't put clear water in the system intentionally, but it happens, right? And oh boy, let me remember. I feel like it's like a statistic, like 60% of potential inflow actually is probably more on the private side than the city side. And it's not just ours specifically, but that's like just generally because like the water main, or excuse me, the sewer mains are the cities, but the laterals that go into it is entirely from the house all the way into the main is private. And so people have roots and, other things that happen in their laterals, and they're just not like we go through and we televise our sewer mains. Like it's not as likely happening in all cases. And so in some places, there's been like stronger language about how to address that inflow and repair. And in some cases, they've even done things like we line our sewer and then they line up the laterals. Just something to think about in the future. We had our hands full, but it is something other communities do. This one I think is always good to see. This is like our operation and maintenance. And so like our sewer cleaning, that's our jetting, root removal, flow monitoring, smoke testing. So we've done a lot more smoke testing in the recent last couple of years. That was something that came out of our I&I study was to do smoke testing. Essentially, it's trying to find leaks. Smoke will come up or vents connected. What am I trying to say? Downspouts. Televising, how much we've televised. We inspect the manholes and the lift stations. We haven't done manhole rehabilitation much. We were doing a lot of it for some time, but all of the brick style manholes are now either have been relined with concrete or they've come out in projects. So we just haven't been worrying about doing it as much. Let's see. This one is always one I'm always interested in because we actually had a lot of rain in 2024, and knock on wood, we didn't have any sanitary sewer overflows, which is a record for us, I think, in high rain event years. But our average daily flow is 0.274. So that's like 275,000 gallons a day coming into the wastewater plant. Our peak monthly flow, so like happening and in one given, or peak month would be 1 million gallons per day. So like even higher. I'm not sure I caught that correctly for him, but then peak hourly flow, we just keeps going up and up. So we're at 3.216 million gallons per day in our peak hourly flow, which associates to 2,000 gallons per minute. So what this means, pardon? I know that one. So it's in million gallons per day. This peak monthly. Yeah, no, I know. I will look at that one again, but I think that it actually looks right. I think it's it's the high flow, the month that has the highest flow, but it has to be read in million gallons per day. So it's always really goofy looking. But our peak hourly flow, which is in million gallons per day, again, this is always confusing. But the meaning like we're getting over 10 times the amount of flow in rain events that we do on an average day. It's a lot. Like our peaking factor is 11.7. It's a big one.
Which is why we
Been working and continually work on I&I. All right. And we talk about like, what are we doing to address it? We worked with our I&I study and done, and that indicated like where we should do further investigations, smoke testing and just looking at stuff. So all in all, we did well in our grading system this year. And then, this is the ordinance that we put forward, which I think I also have in here, and then we can put comments or not put comments. And if the governing body wants to put comments in here, we also can do that. Did I put it in? Oh, where is it? Oh, it's in the Word document. And so then assuming that you're okay with the CMAR, then this would go to council that, the Public Works Committee has reviewed the attached on the 3rd, and that the council approves the CMAR for the year.
I would think the governing body would want to give you an A too.
Awesome, thank you. I'll pass it on to everybody.
Yes, please. Anybody want to make a motion to approve this?
This is Crystal, and I would move to approve the 2024 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report, CMAR, and the resolution.
Motion
Maybe
by,
I'll second.
second by AJ. Any further discussion? One more time, maybe? No. I'm kidding. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's an aye, isn't it? Yeah, it's a roll call. I mean, it's not a roll call.
Oh,
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion carries. Review and approval of pay request number 5 for Main Street TAP project.
We can table the next 2 items. They were not able to get me a pay request, which kind of their own deal.
People don't want to get.
Takes us
paid.
down
Yeah.
to,
All right.
I have to pull teeth to get them to put it in, but it would need to go on the next Public Works agenda though, Lori.
okay, number 10, review and approval of pay request for number 6 for 2024 sewer project.
Okay, and I realize we kind of have, this was my bad, I listed it this way, but can we do the change order first? Because that is incorporated into the pay request. That would be the next one, I'm sorry.
Review and approval of change order number 1 for 2024 sewer project. We'll
Perfect,
do
thank
that
you.
first.
Okay, so this is all we have so far for change orders on the sewer project. And it looks nice because the net is not much. But essentially these are the things that happen in the field, and you realize that you have something that you don't need in there, or you think you're going to do things a little bit differently. And the storm sewer is one of those things that we really have modified a lot in the field. So where we crossed Chicago Avenue, they ended up being, in order to accommodate the future Hanson Farm development, we wanted to make sure that the storm sewer was at the right elevation, so it was kind of low. And so then it ended up that we came out pretty deep under the road onto the west side of Chicago Avenue, and there is a Darylin Power big pole right there. And when we looked at it in the field, it was like, "Ugh, we don't feel very good about this." Darylin came in and they're like, "Whoa, you're way too close to the pole," and it was a fun conversation. In any case, so we worked about like, how could we do this differently? So we ended up doing a couple things. One section, we added a bend and extended the storm sewer so that it came out closer together in a better spot. The other thing we did was we added that sheet piling. We made like a wall against the post so that instead of it, because we were worried about erosion, it was like heading straight for the pole. And that doesn't, that Todd can tell you how much water goes through there. Like that's not something we wanted to play with. And so those are basically, long story short, the changes that we made. There was also, Beerbecker ended up having an error in the design. They had it as a circular culvert and it was actually elliptical, like an oblong shape. And so we never ended up taking the cost on for that, but they ended up taking on and paying for the changes. And they were, I will say, an excruciatingly large amount of money for a manhole because they were like the storm water, like inlet and drops. So I never had to worry about it for one moment. They
Wow.
fixed it and took care of it. And then we on the Sands Road side, we had anticipated we might have to extend the sanitary sewer and turn it just a little bit, extend it, excuse me, and then cover it. And we ended up, because everything worked out with John Everson's property and being able to have the easement, we never ended up needing it. And so that's why we have the deduct. So basically, all in all, these were like all field changes to the storm sewer system. And so the change order is for $2,260.
Okay, looking for a motion, Crystal.
Hello. I'd like to approve the change order number 1 for the 2024 sewer project in the amount of $2,260.
I'll second it.
A motion by Crystal, second by Todd. Roll call vote, please.
Andrew.
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Seth,
I,
and Todd.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Review and approval of pay request number 6 for 2024 sewer project.
Yeah, that's, that change order, I already know what that's for. Okay, so we're get.
Hey, Sarah,
Shoot.
did we lose audio?
I know, I don't have my microphone on.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Sorry,
It- No, it's okay. I thought it was on my end because all of a sudden it cut.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe I did have it on, it just disappeared.
She
Yeah.
was, you should have heard her.
Plus.
Yeah. Well, all of a sudden I'm sitting here and then my computer was being unresponsive, so I thought it was on my side, but then I got it all working. Anyway, go ahead.
Gosh darn it. But okay. Well, it does. I mean, the short of it, hopefully you didn't miss too much, or I didn't miss too much, but the short of it is that everything looks pretty darn good and what expected. This is Lori. All right. So we are looking for current payment due, which is, whoop, I made that hard to see. The 223,587.65 cents.
This is AJ. I make a motion to approve the pay request number 6 for the 2024 sewer project. Total of 223,587.65.
Very good.
This is Crystal. I'll second.
Motion by AJ, second by Crystal. Roll call, please.
Crystal,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
and Andrew.
Aye. Thank you
Okay.
for blowing that up on the screen so I could read that.
Motion carries. Construction project updates.
All right. I'm gonna be really careful about that. Well, I guess we've sort of talked already about the sewer project. We're basically needing to do some restoration work and make everything pretty and secure and not eroding. But I would say that so far so good. It's the oddest feeling to be finishing 2 construction projects in the beginning of June. But that's because we're just gonna have really weird construction seasons. Let's see. We have Main Street the contract is more or less done. So the stuff that's out there, I never got to check if they did that one. There was a concrete panel that they agreed to replace that I just thought was like the worst judgment about where to stop, because it was like this one tiny corner and like an 1.5 inch drop. And it was like, well, why didn't you just keep going? Because they like even like blended it back in. Sorry, I shouldn't do that, but you see all this stuff and you're like, why? And they didn't argue about it. They just replaced it. So that's good. And one of the things is when they were popping out their panels, Gerke didn't used the way they did it. They kind of like leaned back and they always pinched like the same part and like kind of damaged it. So I asked them to put epoxy in those holes because they're just going to get worse with time. So that is more or less done. Like I said, I think for the most part, they've done most of the punch list items. They're going to come forward with wanting to get paid at some point. What we still have left though is the painting. Like, so we have painting to do, and the weather has not been cooperating because the guys were like, we're going to do it this week. And Monday would have been a great day, but they were otherwise tied up. And so then we're hoping soon. But what really needs to happen is painting the gold where you can't park and painting the white where you can park, because some places have changed, and then putting some parking stalls where they're not. Then we're going to go through and look. They're going to do their basic painting that they do all over town. But then we're going to also at the same time kind of look at Main Street, because we haven't painted Main Street. So if you remember, we used to do painting of Main Street, long line and short line paint every year. But we weren't using epoxy. And I've always been really scared about using epoxy because epoxy is like 4 times more expensive. But it is supposed to look or last 4 times longer, and it's been looking really good.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice because it seems like we'd always like struggle to get them in a timely manner. And then once they got in, then it was snow season, and then snow season's hard on the painting. And so it's kind of like just looks better generally. So when we did the Main Street project, the first one, they didn't paint everything. They just painted what was a part of the project. So there's like these random things like the turn signals into Walmart, or not signals, but the arrows, they're wearing out. And so we're going to go through and figure out what needs to happen. But I think we're going to come through with an epoxy proposal this time, like not for us to use it, but for the painters to do Main Street. And then Center Avenue, I think our tentative public meeting date is on the 25th of June. So once that gets confirmed, we just sent that out today. We'll send out notice to everybody. And so it's just a meeting for all the residents and businesses that are affected on the project. We'll start gathering a mailing list, but then having them in and going through everything. There's a few questions that I have for you and or public safety about some of the driveways and things like that that we'll have a conversation with, but I was actually hoping to have the public meeting first and see what people were saying about it. So that was just something we could add to the conversation when we consider it. I think that's about it.
Very good. Anybody have any questions? Okay, street and utility department updates. Cheryl, want to go first?
Sure. Well, I am caught up now, so I am super excited. Yeah. And so now I'll just be working on my regular monthly stuff and the project stuff. And like we have big mailing coming up in June and et cetera, all these other reports that are due. But everything now is all caught up from last fall, early spring. So I'm very excited about that. Sarah settled in nicely and she's back up to speed and she did wonderful during the billing. So super glad we hired her back. Just an interesting thing. I attended a water regulatory affairs meeting last Thursday in Madison. It's an annual meeting that Sarah and I attend. And it was very interesting this year because it was a budget year and they spent a lot more time going through the federal budget and the state budget, the process and things that they have put in and taken out for water quality improvement and affordable water. So one of the interesting things I took away from that was, and I thought you guys would be interested, is the budget the federal budget that came to the House. Normally in the past 10 years or so, they've had between $4.2 billion and $4.9 billion earmarked for affordable water and infrastructure. This year, the budget came to the House with $145 million. So it's a huge drop. However, the House revised the budget and one of the revisions was putting in $4.2 billion back into the budget. So that has gone on to the Senate and the lobbyist from DC that was there said there's indications that it will stay in the budget when it goes to the Senate. So that's about all I have.
Thank you.
Just quick.
Somebody talking again?
Yeah, have anybody either, Nate?
I am trying. I'm so sorry. I turned it off and then I forget to put it back on. And I was trying to be quick. Okay, so
You've
the
got
guys,
15 minutes.
the guy. Well, I have 10. Hey. So the guys have been working on a small water main replacement project. So that was like a good training project. Also saved us money. Because I think it was like 45,000 was what they wanted in the bid, and like we're doing it in-house. Obviously, we're paying for the materials, but nowhere near that. So we got 2 new guys, and so we're getting that in, and they did a lot of it yesterday, but then they decided to close everything up because the rain, which was a good choice on their behalf. They're about 75% done sewer cleaning. They have sidewalk and curb repairs that they need to do over the next couple weeks as well. And from Wade, he says they've got basic maintenance they've been working on, compost. They got a ton of compost. It's that time of year. People are just cleaning out their yards. Grinding stumps, replacing trees, sweeping. I actually saw a post today of somebody saying thank you to Wade about his, I thought that was sweet. Mowing and weed eating. And I think I'm done talking. So unless you have questions about something, I'm done. I'm happy to answer them, but I won't add any more. Good job. Thank you.
Have you hired anybody for the street crew?
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have one interview tomorrow. We've been starting to call people for interviews. So yeah, we were hoping for 3 right away, but I just contacted them yesterday and didn't hear back from the other 2. We had 7 applications in total, which is good enough. Not as much as like historically we get like 80.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, not anytime since I've been here, but I think like 10, 15 years ago. So it's a different time, but I think we have some solid options. So looking optimistic.
Good. I'm sure that they're looking forward to that new hire. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they said, gosh, even what they're doing, he's like, you wouldn't think it would be that big of a big deal, but we really are like impacted by this with Norris retiring. He's like, and even still impacted with I think it was like something happened with the mower and Kyle was helping them out and he said like we still aren't getting things done like we need to. So they're really looking forward to having that position filled.
Okay. Think
That's all I
it.
have for now, I think.
Second period for public comment. Nobody's here. Anybody online want to make a comment? Anybody left other than Nate?
There is one entity that I can tell is not an employee or a council member. But it looks like they're good.
Okay. Adjournment.
Todd will make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Todd to adjourn.
AJ, I'll second.
AJ second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. I didn't hear Seth, but we are adjourned.
Aye.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.